future. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about today is how to reset a core. So the first thing that we're going to discuss and we're going to look at is how to go about and resetting some of the different cores that we have. I'm going to share this screen. So if we go in, so let's start with like a 110. So I don't even know if, let's find a core 110F just in images here, because they're not, the old ones aren't on the website anymore. So we're just gonna pull this up off of somebody's website. Oh, that's a 510. That doesn't do me any good. You would have thought I would have prepped a picture of a 110. Okay, either way. So on the Core 110 V1, maybe I can just type in V1. Here, somebody's got one on eBay. Let's give this person some free. I probably got a picture of what I want.
$2,700. Oh man.
Kidding. All right, here. This is pretty much what I wanted to show. All right, so on the V1, you've got the display and you've got the next and you've got the ID button. If you need to factory reset a Core 110 that is the V1 with the display and the next and the ID button, if you hold down the next and the ID button for, I believe it's about 2 or 3 seconds, it'll pop up on the screen and it will say factory resetting in 3, 2, 1. You just keep holding it down and then it'll say resetting and you can let go. And that is how you reset a Core 110 V1. On the newer cores, whoops, go back. The ones that have the little power ID button. So this is going to be the Nano, the 8 Flex, and the 110 V2. If you go in on the on that little power and ID button, and if you hold that ID button down for about 10 seconds, the power button and the ID button will light up green and stay on. And if you let go of those, then it will start the reset process. Other pieces of equipment that you may have to factory reset is an NV32. So on an NV32, if you're using one of those in core mode, right underneath the USB-B port, there is a little hole. That is the reset button. It is not marked. It's called out in the manual. So if you look it up in the manual, it tells you that's the reset port. But take your favorite straightened out paper clip and put it in there for about 10 seconds, and that will factory reset an NV32. Same thing on the back of the cameras. They also have a little button on the back of them. Oh, they don't show the backs of these. Well, again, I probably could have prepped this. Let's go here and maybe it's in the
on the spec sheet.
Picture of the back. There we go. There it is. It actually says factory reset on it. And again, paperclip, 10 seconds. Get after it. Oh, this says 5 seconds. I don't know. I'm just a 10-second reset kind of guy. So the thing to remember about when you factory reset one of our pieces of gear, what it's going to do is it's going to reset the name back to the default name, which usually involves the model number and the end of the MAC address. like the last 4 characters of the MAC address. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to reset the LAN ports. So if it's a core with dual LAN ports, or in the case of a camera, it's only going to be the one, but it's going to reset the LAN ports back to auto. So it's going to put them back to DHCP so that they will just look for an address somewhere. If it is a core and it is running version 8.0 or later, I believe it will wipe the design file that's on it. But it will not erase things like licenses that have been applied to the core. If you've loaded audio files onto the hard drive, it will not erase those. That will all still be intact. So you don't have to sweat that. Okay, so the first thing I want to show, or the other thing I want to show you on the website is, one of the first things that you're going to do is you're going to need to download the software. Our software is called Q-SYS Designer software.
Look under resources.
It's on this page somewhere right here.
Oh, there you go.
This takes you to, you'll hear some of us refer to this as QDS. It's because we're lazy and don't want to say Q-SYS Designer software all the time. It will always highlight whatever the latest release is and what is new in that new version. There's usually a little video here showing you what's new in that version. So here you have a download for the latest version. So in this case, that's 9.6. Ever since we released our new LTS versions, which is now 9.4.4, you will also find a link to whatever the latest LTS is on here. And then most importantly, you will find a list of archives. So all of the version 8s and 9s are on here. That includes majors and minors. So 8.0, 8.1, 8.1.1. So if you get to a site, and I'm going to show you guys a little trick. This is one of those kind of backdoory things that people probably don't show very often. You guys can see my Explorer right now, right? Coy?
Yep.
You see my window? Okay.
Yep.
Making sure. I'm making sure I'd shared the screen and not just the internet.
Not the browser. Yeah.
So I'm going to just find a designer file here, right? And I'm going to right click it and I'm going to say open with Notepad. So what this is going to do, this is going to open up a whole, whoops, that's my notes. Where'd Notepad go? This is going to open a whole bunch of gobbledygook, but the important part is on the first line. You will notice in quite plain terms, it says Q-SYS Designer version equals 8.1.1. That tells me that this file was saved last in 8.1.1. So what I typically do when I save a file is I will put the version somewhere in the file name so I don't have to deal with this. But just so you know, you can open a Q-SYS Designer file in Notepad and it will tell you what version it was last saved in. There is your hack of the day. I'm going to shut this webinar down. You guys have already learned more than you're ever going to learn from anybody else. Anyhow, okay, so once you know what version you're looking for, this is how you can go through and download them. It also tells you a little bit about what was added in that version in case you're curious as to why you would want to use 9.4.2 over 9.4.1 or, 9.5. If you need something older, if you need a version 7, whatever the last version of the no longer supported, whatever the EOL versions are, is still available. You can still download 7.2.1, mainly because 7.2.1 is a stepping stone version, just like 6.0 is. So I guess it's not the last one, but it's the major ones that you need to stepstone into newer versions. Those are still available. But if you wanted 6.2.1, what you do is you go in here and you request it. and somebody from support will email you a link to download that. Okie dokie. So that's how you download Designer. One of the other things that I do want to show you guys, and this is something that I use obviously a ton, is the help file. Now, everybody at this point, I hope, knows that at any point inside Q-SYS Designer, you can hit F1 and get into the help file. It also exists online. And what's really cool about this is that this is ever updating. The one that's on your computer is the help file from that version of Designer. It is not necessarily the most updated version of anything you have on your computer. This is. So if you're looking for how to do something, and you're trying to figure it out, I highly recommend going to the online help version. You can also get to that under support, I believe it is. Q-SYS help system will also take you to this. It's also q-syshelp.qse.com. So either way, this gets you into the online help file. This is a really important resource. I send people links to this help file more regularly than I can tell you. It's a good way to go through, and because you can come up and you can search, you know, if I need to know something about a Core 110, I can type in Core 110 and here's Core 110F, and this will tell me, oh, it's 128 by 128. So whatever this is that I need to keep track of, it's here. And you know, shout out to my buddy Chris Vicklin. What up, Chris? Chris Vicklin is the unsung hero of the help file. He's the one that maintains all this stuff. So it's my boy. Anyhow, so you know, you've got all your cores in here. So this is the online help file. I'm a huge fan. I love the help file. But one of the biggest things that it does is it also shows you what's new in the version, what issues have been solved, what pieces have been deprecated, how you need to get here. So if you're trying to get to 9.6 and you're on version 6 something, it tells you how you need to get there. You know, if you're on version 5 something, well, you got to go to 6, and then you got to go to 7.2.1, and then you can go to 9, and then, you know, you got to stair step your way through at times. So super helpful here in the help file and the release notes. Okay. So I am now going to switch over. Hang on, I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to, I got to move windows around again. It's the story of my life.
You just need more monitors, Steve.
Dude, I got 3. You know, you would think that would be enough. And yet here I am constantly. Oh, look, everybody needs to see that I'm a proud member of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2000. All right, so this is Q-SYS Designer. One of the first things that I want to go through and show you is the inventory. So over here on the side, I'm going to act like we just loaded into this file and that we're on just a blank page. The first thing that we would have to do is we would have to add things in from inventory. If you've done level 1, or if you've been through any of these other classes, you should be pretty familiar with this. This is where all the pieces of gear live that you're going to pull in. These are pieces that are native to the Q-SYS ecosystem. This is different than plugins. You know, we get plugins from out of Asset Manager, and we bring those in. I'll show that here in just a second. But anyway, so here's all our inventory. In this particular little demo system, we've got a core. Every system will come with a core already in it. If you want it to be a different core, you just come in and you change what core you're working with. We've got some touch panels, we've got a camera, we've got a couple of NVs. So you can have multiple schematic pages. This is how you can go through and break up your designs. You've got your user control interfaces or your UCIs. This is where you actually go through and create and edit your UCIs. We have our snapshots. These are our presets. This is how you go through and create presets, add them, bring in their components, manipulate them. Named controls. This is a way that you can control items inside of Q-SYS from outside of Q-SYS with some inferior third-party control system. And then this is the inspector. The inspector is really handy, especially since it shows you things that you would need a license for. And it shows you how many UCIs you have. If you have any controls that are orphaned or unterminated, it shows you those. List your plugins and how much load they're putting on, your scripts you have and how much load they're pulling. Most scripts are pretty easy. It also, you'll notice that it's very big in orange here that there are licensed features. You can also have it take you to the features that need a license. Things like as soon as we put a touch panel and a UCI in here, it tells us we need a UCI license. We have some scripts running in here, so those need a scripting license. Plugins need a scripting license, things like that.
You can add another AEC block to demonstrate that, and it'll show that you need the
oh yeah,
well, depending on the core you're set up with, collaboration license.
It's a 110.
Yeah. I guess I won't work with a 110, but you get the idea, I'm sure. I don't know if it'll, because the 110 doesn't take those, right?
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't. We don't license a 110, so it's not going to care about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you were into where you needed a collaboration license, one of the scaling license, it would also show you that if you were on a Nano or an 8 Flex. Okay, so let's talk about how we go about finding our gear on our system. So this little gear, gear with a wrench is configurator. You can also go to, I believe it's tools.
Yeah, it's down at the bottom of tools there.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, show configurator. You can tell how often I use that version. I just click the little button up there at the top. Okay, so this is all the Q-SYS gear that is sitting on my network here in my office. Even if it is running different systems, even if it's attached to a system, you will still see it. And then you can go through and you can see what system it's running on. Here's my sound bar. It tells me this is my sound bar. Here's the design file it's running on. Here's the firmware that it's running on. Here are its network settings. Here's its IP address, its MAC address. Here's what switch it's on. All that kind of fun stuff. I can go through, I can download the log, I can reboot it. I can set up a password for it. All that fun stuff. So, but one of the really cool things about how Q-SYS allows us to do this is we can ID pieces of equipment. So every piece of gear has an ID button on it, up to and including this Core 110 that I have sitting in this rack. And if I hit the ID button, you will now notice that this Core 110 in configurator is blinking. So this tells me this is the Core 110 that I just clicked on. You will also see that I can manipulate the ID the other way around. So if I'm trying to figure out, if I have gone through and named my gear earlier, but now I got to remember which one is which because I forgot to put a P-Touch label on the front of it because I'm really bad about doing that. You can also go in and you can turn the ID on and the light on the front of that piece of equipment will start blinking. So you can, it's bi-directional. You can use it both ways to identify a piece of equipment and see which one it is inside of Designer. So we found that, so this is what we call Core Manager. In older versions of Q-SYS Designer software, you would do all of your configuration through this page inside of Designer. Then we came up with this Core Manager, which is an actual web interface. And now what we have is we have a way that you can go to the address of the unit and pull up all this information about the core. One of the most important things about a core is its host name. This is how we pair a piece of equipment, hardware, to a device inside the software. This is how we tell a camera, you are this block inside Designer, not this one over here. Well, clearly I'm getting Teams messages. All right, so that's how you change your host name. You come up and you hit edit, and then you go through and you change your host name. Right now, this one is called Dynamic Test 110. I'm just going to rename this any name. It will not let you put spaces in it. Capitalization does not matter. It's typical host naming rules for like a PC. Once I go through and I give this a name, you will notice that for the moment, it will show up with both names because it sees the new one, but it hasn't timed out yet on the old one. Now that it is timed out on discovery, we've gone through a whole discovery cycle, which is usually about every 7 seconds or so. We get a, I'm going to close this, which apparently doesn't help unless I quit. Okay, so we get it to where it will rescan and show us this new name, which is now called any name. All right, one of the other important things to note on here is this is also where you will set your IP addresses. So if we go back into edit, right now it's on auto. You can put it onto static and give it a static IP address, a net mask, and a gateway. Mine stay on auto. You can also add static routes in here if you need to, if you're trying to traverse through a router. And then finally, this is where you would add your DNS servers. A couple of things to discuss when it comes to IP addressing your hardware. First of all, you typically want all your QLAN associated devices, all your Q-SYS ecosystem devices to be on LAN A. If you are using a secondary, if you're using LAN B in this case to say connect to your corporate network or connect to, you know, something else that you're controlling, you want to make sure that you only have one gateway. In networking terms, the gateway is the address of last resort for a packet that doesn't know where to go. If you put gateways in on LAN A and LAN B, first of all, it will pop up a warning saying you really shouldn't be doing this. Secondly, if you do that, if a packet doesn't know where to go, it's going to just randomly get shot out of one or the other, and you're going to get really intermittent control issues. In order to have the core access the internet, you must put in a DNS server. That applies for getting online with the licensing server, as well as using Reflect, connecting to the internet for Reflect. So if you are not connecting either one of those, make sure you have a DNS server in on your DNS. Okay, so the other things that we can go through, this is where you will change your date and time. Right now, mine is clearly quite off. I'm not in Denver. I think mine is typically set under Chicago.
Chicago.
Oh, because I also don't have NTP turned on. This is how you can turn on NTP so that your core will automatically update itself. So I'm now going to save, and you will now know that it has updated the time. There you go, 10:31, which is precisely the time that it is. All right, so that's how we set time. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at putting a license on here. Now you will notice that there's a scripting and a UCI license that are on here. These have expired. So I'm going to show you how to load a new license onto your core. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to delete these two licenses because they've expired and we want to get rid of them. All right, so now they're gone. So next, what I'm going to do is, of course, ironically, I have to open Teams back up because that's where I had my license stored. So when you order a license, you get a code that's an entitlement ID. You'll get it as an email. So you can just copy that entitlement ID, and assuming that you are online with the licensing server, you can go through and activate. And you will notice that this has a bunch of emergency license on here that I'm going to drop on. And I will hit install. And now you will see that I have two emergency licenses that are installed on here. That will, these are 7-day license, so these will expire in 7 days. All right, so that's how we go about installing a license. So now we have current licensing on our core. The other things that we can do, we can go into access management. We can enter a username and a password. So this is how you will lock your core. So I'm just going to say admin, and I'm going to say 12345 is my password. And I'm going, oh, should be at least 8 characters, really. I'm going
to count all the way to 8.
What? I don't know how to do that.
Oh, come on, that's weak though.
It is weak.
I'm gonna be able to dial into your core through
if that was weak, then apparently my password was Dallas Kicking Game. Okay, so now it wants me to log in because we have a password on here. So here I'm going to type in Dallas Kicking Game, and now it's letting us back in. So we've now put a username and a password on here. It's telling us what system, the name of the system, which, by the way, typically defaults to the design file name, but at any point you can go through and rename that system. So we're going to call this designer test or you can reset it to the design name. Why did it tell me it failed? Okay. It's very angry. I wonder if it's because I've been changing everything. Oh, well, we'll change that here in a minute. Anyway, right now it shows that it's running version 9.4.2 on it. We've set a user. Now that we've set a main user, we can actually add other users and roles. So you can have admins, technicians, and viewers. These are pre-built roles that have certain attributes to them. You can also create custom ones where you can go through and pick and choose what that role, you just give it a name, my role. And you can say, okay, well, I don't want them to see the event log. They can do date and time, but not network. Anyway, you can just go through and full access or view, or it's just completely hidden. That's how you would set up a user and define their role. Okay, so let's go through and let's actually load something to this core. So the first thing that we have to do when we go to load something is we have to look in our design. So in our design, our core's name is QSC demo. So we have to make sure that the host name of that core matches the host name that's in the file. So it does not. This one's called any name. So I now need to go back on network and edit and change this so that it now matches, which it does. I'm going to hit save. And then once that comes back up, I'm going to go ahead and do the same for my TSC. I'll load this one called QR. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my camera. You'll notice that this was just called TSC 80-EB1B. I had factory reset these already, so that's what they looked like coming out of the gate. Same thing with this PTZ 1272. This is just camera 1. I can reboot all at once. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to cancel this because I didn't show it properly. I'm going to now say file. I'm going to say save to core and run. You can also hit F5. Since we have a username and a password, this now requires a username and password for us to load. Okay, so this is telling me, hey, your core has a different firmware than the software you're in. So if you say update, we're going to update the core from 9.4.2 to 9.6. I'm going to say update. So what it's going to do is it's going to upload the firmware. It's going to then install the firmware. And then it's going to load the file and start the file. So while that's going on, I'm also going to go through some other things on in Core Manager that we're going to talk about. Let's see. Where's my other core? I have another core.
While you're digging around, I'm going to answer a question we had come in. The question is system status indicates a fault. Is that significant? So that could be a number of things. That could just be a device that's in the design is offline or not plugged in. It could be any number of things. So not necessarily significant that there's a fault. It's just a matter of looking at it and seeing what that is.
Yeah, and once we load this file, I'll kind of show a little bit about what can cause a fault. It can be anything from a piece of equipment not being there. It can be that it's not seeing something the way it wants to. And then there's a way that you can mute some of those fault statuses from showing that way. Okay, So we are inside Core Manager of a different core, but just so that I can keep going through some of these options down the side. So we've talked about access management and licensing. Let's look at the file section. What this is we've got, every core's got a hard drive in it. So what this lets you do is this lets you put in audio files. Like I have a bunch of music loaded onto my core. I have some testing tracks. I've got some speech tracks on here. These are just things that I use to test systems with. Excuse me. If you are using a paging router and you are storing messages or preambles, this is where your preambles and your messages go. If you are using a page router and you have turned on archive paging, this is where paging archives are stored. And if you are doing conferencing and you're doing some custom ringtones, this is where you would put them so that the system knows where to look for them. So this is the files section of your system. You can also create a folder. You'll see some of us that do this when we do JSON storage on a core. We will create a folder called JSON, and then you can store JSON files as text onto the core and then recall them. This becomes important if you need to have something persist in a script through a reboot, because that's stored onto the core. When the core reboots, it can just pull that information back on. So you can read and write from that drive in different scripting environments. All right, so let's also look under here. We didn't really talk much about the services. One of the really neat things about Q-SYS is the fact that we have these two network ports on here, but we can actually go through and turn on and off different services per port. So there are things like Q-SYS Discovery Protocol. This is a multicast protocol. It runs UDP on ports 2467 through 2470. It also runs unicast on 6504. If you are tied onto a corporate network, they may not want that multicast traffic being shotgunned out on their network. You're not going to have any Q-SYS devices on that network, so you really don't care about having it there. So you can go through and you can turn off Q-SYS Discovery on LAN B. And now that traffic will no longer occur on LAN B. So you can do that for all of these different services, and it tells you what they do. Are they multicast or unicast? What port are they on? And then it gives you the option to turn it on and turn it off based on which NIC. So this is a really cool way to go through and make IT people very happy, because that's pretty much what that's for. Let's see how we're coming over here. Okay, so we have loaded our firmware. We have installed our firmware, and now we are rebooting our core. So we are making progress. All right, so back into Core Manager. We also have, let's see, what else do we want to show? Oh, down here under utilities, we have a way to, oh, this is an NV32 core. Oh, no, this is a Core 8 Flex. So this, wow, look, everybody's seeing something they're not supposed to see. This is where you would download your core log and also reboot. In the future, this is how you will turn a Core 8 Flex into a peripheral. I'm running beta firmware.
Don't tell them.
No, this is actually something that will be released in 9.7, where a Nano and an 8 Flex can become a peripheral, and therefore you can use them as a bridge, or in the case of an 8 Flex, you can use the IO on it. Anyhow, so anyway, that all happens in utilities. This is also, I believe, on an NV32, where you change it from core to peripheral. That's a lot where this dropdown came from. So same concept. Anyhow, and then lastly, we have the reflect tab. This is where you log a core into the reflect system. You can test your connection. You can make sure that you are able to actually pass information back and forth from reflect. Yay, we can. And then if you want to register into reflect, you get this authorization code. You can go into reflect. Should have signed in earlier. So you come into reflect. I have a bunch of, where are my sites? So if I want to add a core, whoo, boy, clearly it's been a while since I've done this. Here we go. Q-SYS sales, Toland, this is my region. This is where I can say add core. We go over, we copy this authorization code, we paste it over here. Invalid authorization code. That's interesting. I'm gonna cancel that. Let's see why it got angry with me. Okay. It's always embarrassing, isn't it? It never works when you're actually on using it.
It's because the rain picked up.
It did too. It's pouring. I just heard it.
It's dumping here too.
Let me add it here. Okay. I'm guessing something must be broken with reflect right now. So I'm going to cancel that, but that's how you would do it if it worked. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to show, we got about 10 minutes and hopefully this is done loading. This is done loading because you will notice we don't have our bar anymore. I'm going to go into this camera. So here's my camera. Seems very angry with me. You can see the back of my head. Mainly because we didn't tell it it's a ceiling mount. There it goes. Hello to my room. So here's my camera. Because we named it, it's all up and running. But what isn't running is this NV32. And there's a reason that this NV32 is not running. And the reason that it's not running is because it's not here. You'll notice it says missing. Likewise, you will notice that if we go into our configurator and we go to our core, oh wait, yeah. And we go to our status, you'll see that our NVs are showing as missing. We show as compromised over here because one of our licenses is expiring. We haven't set up our soft phone. I'll show you how to do that here in just a second. These are all missing. These are sources from our NV. But one of the things that I do want to show you that you can do is you can actually name something while a design is running. So this is called NV display. That's the name of this piece. So I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to take this NV right here. And I'm going to rename it to NV display, and I'm going to hit save. And what you'll notice is that now this shows that it's initializing and it's downloading firmware. So all I had to do was just change its name, and Designer, with a design running, saw that piece of equipment with it named and said, oh, well, there it is, let's go. So now it is starting to work on writing firmware. And then once it's done, that piece of equipment will come up and start working. So what we were just talking about, one of the last things is how to go in and set up your soft phones. So under telephony, you've got a tab that says soft phones. As with anything else, you just hit edit, tell it what LAN you want to run, where your SIP server is running or where your VoIP server is running. And then tell it what port, tell it which codec you want, just put in all the information that the VoIP system gives you and tells you to put in. And then that will let you register your soft phone onto the system. You can also load contacts in here. You can put an LDAP book in here. You can create a local book. The other thing to show is with the cameras, you have a privacy image, an image when you are leaving privacy mode, and an image when the camera is actually offline. These are the default ones, but you can always come through and click this button and load your own onto it. And then you can have a custom privacy screen like this. Let's see if mine works. So I have a Q-SYS logo loaded into mine. So whenever I hit privacy on my camera, you see the Q-SYS logo. And then when it comes out, I just have the same logo loaded for leaving privacy and privacy. So it just stays on that logo until the camera is completely out of privacy. Video endpoints, you also have some options. Every NV32 has 3 graphic slots on it. So you'll notice that's an encoder. You'll notice on this decoder that we have graphic 1, graphic 2, and graphic 3. Those are loaded here in Core Manager. Graphic 1, graphic 2, graphic 3. They are global for every endpoint on the system. They are not per endpoint. So do please be aware of that. So that's for graphics. You can also set an idle screen, which can consist of an image and a logo. And it can also have text that goes out there as well. So you can have a text line, you can have the logo that you put in and the image that you put in. And this is if the room is idle, then this is what it will push. You also have an EDID manager, where if you are having to work with custom EDIDs, you're having trouble getting a display to work, that's how you go through and get your EDID to work. The very, very last thing that I'm going to show is dynamic pairing. Dynamic pairing is what allows you to take a single piece of equipment and move it around within your Q-SYS system and in your Q-SYS design. One of the most popular ways to do this is I've done a bunch of these for like event room or event halls, where we will have data ports all the way around the room, and the customer can go through and take a TV with a rolling cart, a rolling cart with a TV and an NV32 on the back of it. They hook it up, and depending on which switch port they hook that into, it will show up as a different device inside of Q-SYS, which allows them to then go through and route video differently. I've done this with lecterns before, where I'll have a touch panel and say an NB32 and a lectern, and I'll put 2 data ports around the room in different spots. And depending on which one they hook into, the touch panel will look different. You can even do it from room to room, and then the touch panel will know what room it's in, and it may put up a different UCI. There's a lot of things you can do with dynamic pairing. You can also do host name based dynamic pairing, which basically says whatever you hook up to this switch port, I want you to name it this, which is mostly used for hot swapping amplifiers, for hot swapping digital amplifiers. If you've got one sitting as a spare and an amp goes down, you can disconnect it if your dynamic pairing is set up. As soon as you connect to that new amplifier, it will name it and bring it online and just get it running. So lots of interesting things that you can do out of dynamic pairing. And I believe that is pretty much everything that we're going to share today. So I'm going to come out of this and open up for any questions. Look at that. I think this is the first webinar I've ever hosted where I was done yakking before 11 o'clock.
I'll say you're early today.
No kidding.
Didn't have too many coming up while you were rolling. One about the faults, which we talked about. That was really it. Pretty light deep dive today, but lots of useful info.
This is a shallow dive.
Shallow dive, yeah. Yeah. It's dipping the toe in.
And I haven't done one of these in a couple of weeks. I missed you guys. Well, all right then. I'm gonna hang out for another minute or two, and then
y'all can ask unrelated questions as well if you have them.
Always.
You got our attention, so if you got them, we are here.
You're also welcome to ask me how happy I am that Dallas just imploded in the playoffs.
Yeah, if you open the we got a question just popped up here. Does Q-SYS provide a course that goes through a demo design? Kind of,
sort of. I mean, level 1 is building a design.
And 2 kind of expands on a simple design too. Honestly, I'd say that UCI and control fundamentals is a good baseline for creating UCI. And then some of the controls that go along with that, but we don't have one that's specifically, hey, here's how you create a design. It seems like every class we do has a base design because a lot of the starting points are things that are gonna maybe pertain to a specific project versus the meat and potatoes that we want to teach in a class.
Yeah, I would say level 1, and since that's all online now, I mean, that shows you how to go in and build a file from scratch and drag stuff in and all of that.
Maybe that's a deep dive.
Exactly. That would be a deep dive. The answer to how happy am I that Dallas imploded in the playoffs is beyond words. I can't stand the Cowboys for a myriad of reasons.
Yeah, neither can I.
Oh, glad that's blurred out.
Blurring it out. No.
Yeah, that's what you get for using that fancy filter. I mean, I guess I could be cool like you and have a Muppet for a quarterback, but
yeah, that's true. He is a Muppet.
Heck of a quarterback. He is a Muppet. Whatever. I can't talk. I'm a man without a team right now. I'm not sure I can claim the Texans right now.
There you go. Yeah, I was bummed that the Bills lost to the Bengals.
I was too. I like the Bills, but given the teams that remain, I guess I have to go for the Eagles. So that comes down to one great story. When the Lions, my apologies all the way around. So when the World Series was going on, Houston played Philadelphia, and I am a massive Astros fan, have been my entire life. I even suffered through the 90s when we were like a 100-loss team. So these years have been great. When the series transitioned from Houston up to Philadelphia, for us to play the Phillies, Jalen Hurts took to his press conference in an Astros shirt and an Astros hat. And he took all manner of flack from the Philly media for showing up not wearing, Phillies gear, but wearing Astro stuff. And Jalen Hurts sat there in front of those people and said, I'm from Houston. I'm a Houston boy. I've been an Astros fan my entire life. And now I will rep my city, even though I love Philadelphia. I love you guys, but that's my team. So I'm going to be true to my team, just like I expect all of you people to be. And I was like, love that guy. So Houston guy, Jalen Hurts, straight out of Channel View High School, which is known for pollution and Jalen Hurts. All right. I think people have listened to us yammer long enough. As always, I am not QSC Webinars. I am Steve McCary. I will, for the last 10 seconds, I will actually rename this so you know what my name is. But we are, Coy and I, everybody at QSC for the most part, first name dot last name at QSC.com. If you need to find us, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to shoot me an email. You better shoot it to me quick because I will be leaving the country tomorrow. I will be at ISC for the next 10 days. Tom Norman, send me an email today, quickly, and let me know where you are and what the project is, and I will get you to your sales, your area manager and your application engineer, and make sure that you get all the information that you need, unless you are in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, or New Mexico, at which point that's me. Steve.mccarry@qsc.com. And actually, I'll type it in here for you, Tom.
Give them a little copy and paste action.
All right. Everybody have a great day. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. Good golf, good tennis, or whatever makes you happy. Take it easy, guys. We'll see y'all next week.